Like, it probably solved the immediate problem, but that's the problem with civil engineers, is they're only thinking in the present.
Like the here and now. Like, don't build it for, like, oh, just now. Like, well, by the time you're done building it, it's obsolete. Just like the fucking light rail.
Minimize pileups, right? Like, yet it always seems like any of their solutions end up making it worse.
What do you think's gonna happen? Like, it's obviously gonna be completely useless. Like, it'll be ineffectual, flaccid, limp dick. Like, that's a good way to describe civil engineers. Nice.
Welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy, where you might get shot with a bottle cap.
Yep, with the cap gun.
I am Casey Rochford, and you should like and share, because we just shot at you, and now you know what'll happen if you don't.
Exactly. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and while Casey is inclined to shoot bottle caps at people, I shoot actual firearms.
Demonetized.
Yeah, not at people though. We never do that. That's yeah. You don't.
As you're like flailing it in my general direction.
I didn't necessarily flag you. It's okay. It was over that direction. Yeah, I mean, you know, from this perspective. But anyway, yeah. So Casey and I, we write our own music. There might be a new song at the end of this episode. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Could be an old song, but you know, go to the end and check it out. If you just care about the music and don't want to listen to us talk. But yeah. So, Casey, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, in experiencing roads in Europe in general, and say, you know, over my life, like other cities that are supposed to be like really bad traffic, I've noticed that like none of them have as bad a traffic as Seattle does, and it's not the volume of cars. It's just how shitty the roads are designed here.
Yes. Well, okay, those who know me know that I believe that every road everywhere is designed poorly. Like, civil engineers, like, they live in a different plane of existence. They don't build roads for humans. But that said, there's a lot of factors at play too, like the drivers themselves, their behavior, and yeah, road design is certainly a component of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this area, oh my God, we have the worst roads possible. But it isn't. So I think you can, even if the roads are built bad, like you could have like really stupidly designed roads like we do in this area, and still be able to navigate them effectively without causing traffic jams.
They're
and
creative.
backups. Yeah, yeah.
It's clever.
The 16 I-5 interchange is like that's next level. Like, I mean, that is some.
Well, there's
some,
a
like,
poster with like you think it's like ancient Norse runes, but it's actually like intersections in Seattle.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're just crazy looking.
Well, and yeah, there's no, if you're driving there and you're unfamiliar with the area, well, you better be familiar with the area, because the signs don't really tell you where to go and what lane you should be in, and then stuff suddenly just springs upon you, and that's how they do things around here.
People have a hard enough time with 4-way stops. You give them a 7-way stop, and it's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is actually a really good topic to discuss. Like, and you know, I would like to talk, or speak to all the civil engineers out there, all the people designing roads, in the same way I would talk to UI designers, like people who design user interfaces. Build them for humans. Start with that premise. Like, start with the idea that this is for humans, not robots, not algorithms. You know, this is not for a simulation. These are for... Build a thing for actual human beings and the inconsistency of human behavior, and you will succeed in building something that functions. But they don't seem to do that. It's like, oh, it worked good on paper. I guess we'll spend millions of dollars constructing this thing. And then we're like, scratching our heads, like, why didn't that work? It's like a bunch of monkeys. Like, well, of course it didn't work.
Way back when I was still dating my second ex-wife, I had met her uncle for the first time, and I was talking to somebody else in the room and complaining about roads, and I was like, oh, civil engineers are idiots. And her uncle is like, hey, I'm a civil engineer. And I look at him, I'm like, and?
Yeah. You're an idiot then.
like, explain this.
Exactly. Like, well, that's a good point. Yeah. How does that happen?
Yeah.
How is that possible? Like, and you know, I would, okay, I could forgive engineers of any sort for having a concept of something. Like, hey, I've got a dream. I'm going to build this thing, and I think it's going to work this way. And then it completely falls apart and doesn't function at all like they say. And then they just move on. They're like, okay, well, we're not going to do that again. But civil engineers are in like a special class where it falls apart over and over and over again and doesn't do any of the things that it originally claimed it would do, and they just keep doing it. They're like doing the same shit. Cloverleafs, really?
Yeah.
Come on.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking they probably were just like, what could go wrong with cloverleafs? Let's just make them all cloverleafs and not even test them.
Yeah.
Because they're lucky, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
For a leaf.
I could forgive somebody for doing it without any data. Right? Like, this is the first time this has ever been done. We're building freeways for the first time. Well, maybe this, like, logically makes sense. We have people go in little circles, crisscross around each other, and then, you know, that they build it. But the fact that those things, for like 70 years, have been built, and they don't work 100% of the time, but they keep building them.
Well, it's kind of like a river, right? Like, it's cut the way it's gonna go, and to change that is pretty hard. You know, like when you're talking about the corridor through downtown Seattle, in order to widen that, you're talking about demolishing skyscrapers.
Well, okay, yes, I completely agree. However, the Seattle I-5 corridor was built well after. Oh, hi, Floyd. Well after many of the previous constructions and failures have been built and experienced. Like, that's not a new thing, and they have been working on that area for a long time, like building and rebuilding and moving the noodles across and up and over each other and stuff, and like, as if no one has a clue what is going on.
Well, they've got a good idea there. The express lanes.
Yeah.
You know, like this little side freeway that's one direction at certain times. But that's the dumb bit. Because whenever I need it, it's always going the other direction. And then at some point, it just closes for the night.
Yeah.
For what reason, I don't know. Because you can be in Seattle at 2 a.m. and be stuck in a traffic jam.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, and like, I agree. The express lane idea, a way to bypass, like, if you're passing through Seattle and not going to Seattle, it makes sense to have a separate stretch of freeway that just goes around all that. But it begins and ends inside of Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't start, like,
Yeah.
way back.
They really need to take it south
Yeah.
a lot further.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, it should happen. Those signs that you see with the speed limits, that should be the time where you're getting off onto the bypass route to go around Seattle entirely. Like, but again, it's one of those things. It's like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, the concept is sound.
Yeah.
Make a bypass lane around a choked freeway system. But why does it start well after the traffic? Like, all you have to do is get up in a helicopter and 5 o'clock p.m., 1700, look down there and see where all the traffic is. Start it before that point and end it after that point.
In defense, it's easy to look backward and say, well, that was dumb. But maybe at the time, it was actually pretty clever. Mm-hmm. You know, like, it probably solved the immediate problem. But that's the problem with civil engineers, is they're only thinking in the present.
Like the here and now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like, if you're gonna go to the trouble to carve out another tiny little freeway to bypass a major city, that's a great idea. Maybe think about how to do it once.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like, really well.
Imagine the future. Like, think ahead a little bit. So say, oh, you know, it's really bad right now, and this is why we're doing this. But then go, okay, well, you go back in time. Okay, this is how it was, you know, like in the 60s or 70s, and this is how it is now, and this is why we're building this. Well, pretend that it's 40 years in the future and build it to that specification.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Seattle has doubled in population and build it around that.
Yeah.
Like, don't build it for, like, oh, just now. Like, well, by the time you're done building it, it's obsolete. Just like the fucking light rail.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a joke. Like, that thing, it would have made sense if they had built that about in the 60s or 70s.
Right.
That would have helped. But, you know, building light rail as if, like, a project, I don't know how long this project is going to take, but I think it's like a couple decades to finish.
Yeah.
And so they're building it based on looking at things when they started. Like, oh, this is how things are. We will build a thing to accommodate the current state of affairs, even though it's going to take multiple decades to build. Well, what do you think's going to happen? Like, it's obviously going to be completely useless. Like, it'll be ineffectual, flaccid, limp dick. Like, that's a good way to describe civil engineers.
Yeah. You know, yeah, the whole idea is to minimize pileups, right? Like, yet it always seems like any of their solutions end up making it worse.
Yeah.
Like toll HOV lanes.
Mm-hmm.
They did this in a stretch of 405 up near Bothell, you know, kind of near Seattle, other side of the lake. And it was already pretty bad traffic. Mm-hmm. Then as soon as they implemented this, like, you have to pay money to drive in this HOV lane unless you have this transponder that you click over if there's 3 people in your car, and like who's doing that with honor?
Yeah, couldn't you just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But traffic got way worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a tiered, well, not tiered isn't the right word. The price of the toll fluctuates depending on how busy it is. So the more traffic there is, the more you have to pay to take your 3 people into this carpool lane, which sounds really fucking dumb to me. Like, you're de-incentivizing people, like, moving out of the pack and into that lane. And that's probably, for the most part, what happens, but I can't even figure this out. I've literally seen a $10 toll, and that lane was backed up more than the regular lanes. Like, people weren't just like, oh, this is moving faster, I'm gonna save $10 and like rejoin the flow of traffic.
You're better off not even paying that money and going into that lane. Well,
so the drivers are stupid too.
Well, yes, okay, we'll get into that because that I think is a major factor. But like from a civil engineering standpoint and from a governmental big idea standpoint, I think a big problem is this kind of philosophy of like, if you build it, they will come. Like,
only if it feels good.
Well, yeah, but they're like, we're gonna build these things and try to produce incentives to get people to do something like carpool, right? Okay, well, not everybody can do that. In fact, most people can't do that. It's very self-centered for Seattle to believe that like everybody that lives in the outskirts is coming to Seattle. I mean, there are a lot of people, but you can't just...
Or that they live next to a coworker.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, how long does it take to drive across Tacoma to pick up your coworker or something? Like, oh, you're better off just hopping in your own cars and going, because it might take 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go pick somebody up. But you can't just, like, have this pie-in-the-sky idea, like, well, you know what, if we just build this utopian freeway system and just people are going to adopt it and utilize it. No, people are assholes, people are dumb. You have to build around that premise. Like, assume that everybody is an idiot. But they don't do that. They it's based on this kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this idea that like, oh, we have this great idea and just everybody's gonna love it. And if we just build it, they'll use it. Like the light rail, just like the link in downtown Tacoma, will not be used. Every time I see that link coming by, there's like 3 people in this huge multi-million, it might even be billions of dollars, train that we have, this electric train, which, by the way, doesn't even go anywhere. Like, it kind of goes from, like...
Downtown Tacoma to
downtown Tacoma, yeah. Like, it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, okay.
And traffic was never really a problem in downtown Tacoma.
No.
I don't even know why they started that project.
I think somebody... This is the thing, a lot of these projects are actually, like, cash grabs. Like, somebody is making some money. They're getting kickbacks.
But that thing was free for, like, a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, we're going to build this thing and help traffic, and we're not going to charge anything.
And nobody wrote it!
Yeah. And then they're like, well, now we got to charge people, like, $3.
Yeah.
And
but who's going to pay that? Like, you could almost walk to your destination faster than you could take the link. Like, it's terrible. Oh, and of course it's like, they chose the absolute worst place to put it, which is on the main thoroughfare through downtown Tacoma, in the middle of the road, which anytime that thing comes by, everybody has to stop, and the traffic signals completely break, and you're just sitting there at a red light.
The funniest thing is, back in the day, streetcars went through downtown Tacoma. There was already an existing rail system going right down the middle of Pacific Avenue.
Yep.
And then a few decades ago, they spent a bunch of money tearing all that out, paving over it.
Only to put it back again. Yeah.
Like, what? What?
What's wrong with streetcars? Like, actually, streetcars make sense.
Yeah.
Or electric buses. Remember back in the day, Seattle had the overhead lines with electric buses? But they're kind of phasing them out. And they had the monorail. Like, okay, say what you want. I actually like the idea of monorails.
That's even, like, shorter than the link. Like,
yes.
It really goes nowhere.
It was a proof of concept thing. Like, but I think if it were expanded, it would work. Like, raise the train over traffic. Like, put it independent of intersections. That's one of the things about the link that's a problem, is like, it's passing through the intersections on the actual street. Whereas
I've got a problem with the monorail, though, because the pylons, or whatever you want to call them, create it so that you can't take a left turn anywhere on Fifth Avenue where the monorail exists, because it's and for good reason. Like, your visibility is reduced to almost nothing.
Pretty much blind at that point.
Yeah, and so, like, that's a huge problem, because, like, that is one of the main thoroughfares that, like, if you want to get out of Seattle to I-5, you have to go left to get to I-5 if you're going south on Fifth Avenue.
Well, and maybe that was a bad place to put that.
Yeah.
The concept, I think, makes a little bit more sense than an on-street train system. But yeah, there's so many other options that are completely ignored. Electric buses, the trolley systems and stuff like that. Trolleys are great because, like, they flow with traffic. They ride on tracks. It's easy in theory to implement. But monorails are great because they're elevated above everything else. So they don't have to stop. They don't interfere with anything. It just can't. It shouldn't be traveling parallel to a main street.
Well, it can be on a main street. It's just, you have to think outside the box. When you're like, oh, we're going to have this monorail going down this main street, well, it's got to be sitting on something like this. When you could have, like, you know, like
an A-frame or something. Yeah,
where you take it out to the sidewalk and then just build little tunnels for people to walk through. Easy peasy.
Actually,
and more sturdy.
Triangles.
Yeah.
You know.
Triangles.
And actually, like, spanning a street, you could have staircases and all kinds of pathways for people to walk across the street without having to wait for traffic signals.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good idea.
Another thing Seattle needs is, like, pedestrian bridges. Like, you cannot turn even right. You can't turn right in Seattle because there's too many people walking.
Yeah.
And then Seattle's all like, there's not enough people walking.
It's like, there's a ton of people walking.
Yeah, it's such a mess. Such an ugly mess. But why don't we examine, because like, we've both done minute microscopies about this from differing angles. Why don't we examine one of the hot button solutions for traffic flow, and that's, you know, the roundabout.
Yeah. So
I think we both agree there are definite situations, like 7-way intersections, where, provided there's enough room to put one, it makes sense.
Sure.
Like, I think we agree on that. But, like, where I come from is that I've seen way too many situations where, even if it's laid out exactly like it should be, like a grid with a circle in the middle, and it's four directions, that's it. The main thoroughfare has people doing this, you know, like going in and out super fast, and then you get traffic piling up on these sides where they can't go at all.
Yeah, because you have to yield to traffic in the circle.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the fault of idiot drivers, but it's also kind of a viral mentality. It's like, well, that guy just went through, I'm going to ride his ass and go through. Because nobody wants to slow down. And oftentimes, like, I mean, there's sections of highways now putting in roundabouts. Fucking stupid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the point that I made in my minute microscopy about roundabouts, is like, the concept is actually very sound, but the implementation is poor. That they're put in all the wrong places, in all the places where they'd be stellar, like South 38th and Steel Street is a good example. in Tacoma, no roundabouts. So, okay, well, you just have to sit there at that turn lane for like 3 light cycles, well, like a bunch of idiots who are looking at their phones and Instagramming and stuff, like, take like 10 seconds to finally figure out the light's green and start moving. The problem isn't, in my opinion, the problem isn't the roundabout as a concept. The problem is, like, where they put them. That's a kind of a big issue. Well, okay, it's drivers. We should definitely address...
Mostly it is drivers. The multi-lane roundabouts and, like, the one on North Stevens, where you can just drive in a straight line in one direction.
Yep.
So everyone's just like, 45 miles per hour, and there were more accidents produced by putting that roundabout there than, it wasn't even a problem before. There were stop signs.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole bunch of traffic.
There's not a lot of cross traffic, actually.
No.
Like, so why would you put, and they put it in there offset. Like you said, you could just blaze through if you're coming in the right direction. Mm-hmm. You kind of just veer that way and you're good.
Meanwhile, if you're going the other direction, you've got to go down to like 2 miles per hour to like go around this way and then snake back and
navigate like a 90-degree,
hit the curb because they brought it way too close. They like made it narrow as fuck.
Oh, and it's full of like potholes too, which I've gone through that thing on my scooter and like hit one of those potholes and almost landed on the sidewalk.
Oh, jeez.
Like, that was a stupid place to put it. But there's so many places that could benefit from it. Like,
I'll tell you this: Europe is supposedly like known for their roundabouts and how extremely well they function. No, they have the exact same idiot drivers and the exact same idiot civil engineers.
Yep.
They suck just as bad over there.
Yeah. Well, and it's a whole grass is greener thing. Like, people aren't there if they're here, so they kind of like fantasize that, this must be better. You see a couple of YouTube videos and like, everything's great in Europe. And it's like, no, it's kind of shit too. I would like to talk about like proper solutions to some of these things. I don't know that the scope of this particular video can cover all those.
No.
But it'd be good to talk about that.
Well, we haven't even talked about bike lanes, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's kind of...
That's another one of those things where, like, it's like Field of Dreams kind of thing, where the politicians and such, they want to encourage greener solutions. I don't know that bicycles are necessarily a greener solution, but it could be. So just, put a bunch of bike lanes in, and everybody's going to use them. Well, how many bicyclists have you seen? Like, I've over the years, it's pretty much consistent. I see the same number of bicyclists on the road.
Yeah.
As like, over decades, it's the same number of people.
Yeah.
It hasn't, like, ballooned where everybody's like, there's bike lanes now. Yeah.
This is why bike lanes are bad for the environment. Is because you've taken these 2-lane roads, reduced them to 1 lane, so you'll like force people to ride bikes. Yeah, how well did that work? Now you got this bike lane and then like a spot for cars to park on a busy ass road, and you don't have that many people biking, but you've got all this pavement that you've got to not only lay the cement on, but then keep it up, or asphalt, which is not great for the environment. And
no, people don't realize asphalt requires oil. Mm-hmm. Like, most roads require oil to make and maintain.
Yeah.
Like, so if
you should be fitting as many cars as possible on these roads if you've already got them built and
Yeah.
the infrastructure is there, put more cars on it.
And if there's a demand for bicycles, that makes sense. But you
Yeah.
can't manufacture demand. And this is something that politicians either willfully or ignorantly neglect to understand. Is like, people aren't they're not going to start bicycling because you create bike lanes or something. They will do it on their own accord. And also, in this area, as in many areas, who rides a bike to work? Because it's fucking raining all the time.
Well, not just that, but it's impractical for like 99% of people. Unless your job has showers and, like it's close enough to where it's affordable to live on whatever you make working there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a whole lot of factors that have to go into whether or not a person could feasibly bike to work. But an actual better solution that would fix traffic and be better for the environment would be to take the idea of the express lanes and sort of make an express transit. Like, have all these little, like, satellite park and rides where there's shuttles that bring you to various parts of a big city.
Yeah.
So, like, you've got a bunch of people on these buses going to work from their neighborhood park and ride. Like, park and rides are a great idea.
Yeah, I agree.
But, just having them be regular buses is also impractical because it takes, like, 2-3 times as long, to get to where you're going. But if you've got shuttles that go, like, right into, like, downtown districts and stuff, well, I mean, I think that would work pretty well because you can adjust it on demand, too. Like, there's more people working, we need another shuttle or two, like...
And that's adaptable very easily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, I love that idea. I think if we are to impose or generate or attempt to generate incentives, why not encourage people to do what they do in Asian countries? Ride scooters and motorcycles. Like, what if we...
Same argument for rain, though.
Well, this is true, but at least on a scooter or a motorcycle, you can move a lot faster than you can on a bicycle. Mm-hmm. So, in theory, you should be less rained on. And imagine bicycling from Tacoma to Seattle every day, there and back, as a commute. It'd be like...
I commuted with a motorcycle for a while.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense. Yeah. So, what if we said... Because, the thing is, like, okay, typically scooters and motorcycles are less environmentally friendly. Like, their engines, two-cycle engines, are pretty common, but...
They're like 50 miles to the gallon.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're burning very little fuel. So, at the end of the day, it's not bad. Floyd.
That's my beer, Floyd.
Yeah, Floyd wants some beer. So what if instead of spending a shit ton of money on trams and trains and buses and stuff, we just simply ignored all the expenses for licensing for scooters and motorcycles, and like, hey, you know what? If you're gonna do this, it's super easy and cheap. Like, there's tabs, there's no tabs. Just like bicycles. No tabs. If you have a two-wheeled vehicle, it's free. And because here's the thing. Is the point to generate revenue, or is the point to solve problems? And if it's the former, I would say, okay, there's a reason for having licensing fees and a bunch of paperwork and all this stuff. But if it's the latter, none of that makes any sense.
It's in reality, though, it's a blend of the two, because you do have to fund upkeep of, the infrastructure.
But two-wheeled vehicles tend to not cause that much harm to the infrastructure. Like,
It's not always about harm, though. Like I said, with the bike lanes, that's still a huge real estate of asphalt.
however, think about it. Like, bicyclists don't pay tabs.
Right. Which
And-
is
but
wrong.
But yet, governments all over the place are spending billions of dollars building lanes just for them.
Bike box.
Yeah, green bike box. Like, why don't we do this for motorized vehicles?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it works in other, but so.
Well, I mean, there are bike lanes. Why not just let scooters and motorcycles ride in those?
I suppose so. Yeah, but to even further incentivize those, because the thing is, like, cars are really a big issue. That, I think, is kind of the genesis of a lot of traffic woes. So if we eliminate the barriers to like, okay, it costs you nothing from a stateside level to get a scooter or a motorcycle. If you get one, like, just go ahead and get it. Just like a bicycle. Like, there's no licensing for bicycles. You don't have to have a bicycle license. But yeah, it's basically the same thing. Yeah. Well, we actually, maybe, yeah, I think that should be set, so you give it a shot. Yeah. Oh! Shoot yourself in the head. Well, it worked. Yeah, so preemptively you have to pull this little thing back so
That
that...
only slightly hurt.
I'm surprised, because those was just
Maybe
sharp
if we
ass
put our
edges.
heads together, the boat could go down the line. Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's...
Stepped on your idea.
But
What do you think about stacking? Be it roads or parking garages or park and rides, like building up instead of out. I think that would help a lot too. Up and down.
I totally agree. Granted, the engineering challenges are a little more difficult with doing that, but it's totally doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, having multi-layered freeways and roads and stuff, freeways in particular. Like, imagine if the top level was the one where hardly anybody came onto or off of. And it's more like I'm in the long haul. I've got to go a long distance. And if you want to get close to a city, you go down to the lower level, and then you got to deal with stuff. But everybody on the top, they're going through. They're not stopping. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, one of your former bosses, we kind of made fun of this at one point. She had said something like, they should make a separate freeway for big rigs. Right?
Yeah.
But, like, if that were the case where you had, like, two levels, it would make sense to direct big trucks to the ground level and not the one that's, like, sitting on pylons or something.
Well, yeah, to have like a commercial thoroughfare of some sort does actually make sense.
Seattle kind of has that, and I remember parts of California had it when that big earthquake like pancaked them, which is an issue, of course, but one that proper engineering.
Another engineering failure there, yeah.
But yeah, it really does work. When you're in the express lane, there's a part where you're underneath, the regular I-5.
Yeah.
Going over the water. That actually makes a whole lot of sense.
It does. Like, and I'm surprised it's not used more often.
It's like a bridge situation, too. Like if you've got bridges piling up, we'll just go underneath the road and make another bridge
Yeah.
with the existing bridge infrastructure.
Well, and it helps to look at like where the traffic is coming from, like what constitutes the bulk of the traffic. And this is something that I think is lost on a lot of civil engineers or people involved in these projects, is like analyzation of analyzation of like who's driving there, like what. That's an important thing. Like, it needs to be built around the people who are traversing those places, which it really isn't. Like, it definitely isn't built around people. Like, that is a huge problem. That every civil engineering product or project that I can think of in recent years is built around this kind of premise of like, oh, we played it out in simulation. But it's like, okay, you still have to think about human beings. There are humans driving these roads. Humans that are very prone to bad driving habits.
Yeah.
And so why are the roads built as if that's not a thing? Who builds a road?
Disappearing lanes.
Oh,
What?
God.
What is... Oh my god. Yeah, I can't believe we almost forgot zipper merging.
Oh, God.
This whole right lane disappears right after an intersection. It's always right after an intersection.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that, like, hey, I know this lane is going to end. If I see an opening, I should grab it. No, they want to go all the way to the end of the lane, speed up, get up there, get ahead of everybody so they can wait a little bit in front of the other people.
You're going like 20 miles an hour
Yeah.
the whole time. You're merging with people going, like, basically idle speeds.
Yeah. People
on the freeway.
People think zipper merging is happening at the end of the lane. It has to happen in
Throughout.
the flow.
Yeah.
In the flow.
It has to happen throughout.
A zipper doesn't work if only one side is bunching up. You know?
Well, yeah, and I think that term might be a problem where people feel like, oh, well, if you look at a zipper, you pull up the zipper and they alternate, the little interlocking pieces alternate together. Well, that's not how organically things work in the field.
Yeah.
Like, they don't work like that. But the concept, if you're going 20 miles an hour, it's not going to hinder or help you to be behind or ahead of another car. Like, being ahead of another car, it's like, okay, well, think about this, assholes. Like, if you get ahead of that car over there, well, there's like thousands of cars ahead of you.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Just get in and drive. Drive like a normal person. Like, there is no ahead or behind or anything. Time also is another thing. Well, this goes back to the human condition sort of thing. People are like, oh, I'm late for work and I'm panicking and stuff. You know what? Fuck it. Just relax. It's okay. What's the worst they can do? Fire you?
Oh, bike it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just relax. Like, you're going to get there when you get there. Like, getting ahead of a car or behind a car, like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You're still, the flow of traffic is flowing the way it does, like a river. The river goes fast, the river goes slow. Getting up on someone's ass isn't going to make them go faster because there's probably another car ahead of them that can't go any faster because there's other cars ahead of them. So just chill out, relax, turn on some music and drive to work. And if you're late and they fire you, whatever. Get another job. Like,
Yeah. And it's, yeah. There's also civil engineers and drivers, but there's also the whole culture of 9 to 5.
Oh, oh my God!
Oh,
Yes,
man, like
that's a huge problem.
making everybody drive at the same time is ridiculous.
Well, yeah. Why is there a rush hour? Why is that a thing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get it.
Spread out, people.
Yeah.
That includes time.
Yeah, I get it. If
Think 4 dimensional.
like, so when I worked at the mall, I will never go back and work at the mall ever again, but I did for a while. The mall opened at a certain time, and that was the time the mall opened. So I had to be there for the customers, because that's when the mall opened. That makes sense. Okay. But if you work in like manufacturing or work for the military or something like that, shit happens day and night all the time. There is no like beginning and ending. There's no like opening or closing. So why does everybody have to start and stop at the same time?
Yeah.
Why?
Most jobs don't have to.
No, they don't. That like
If you're analyzing data, if you're
yeah,
doing the books,
you
know,
could be
like,
doing that
yeah,
any hour.
none of that shit requires you to, like, okay, have a little overlap, sure.
Mhm.
Like, so, I get it. You got to talk to people sometimes. Face to face is a lot easier, a lot faster. I get it.
But
You know.
in an 8-hour workday, there's a lot of leeway for overlap there.
And work from home, like, should be a thing if
Yeah.
it can be a thing.
Well, we've proven that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally legit, totally doable.
Traffic in Seattle was good during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were like, we gotta get butts in seats again.
Yeah, gotta come back to work. Like, why? What? I mean, it worked fine.
Yeah.
Like, why
Maybe
do
better, actually.
that? Well, yeah. And from an environmental standpoint, it's like, if you can work from home, why not?
Yeah.
Like, why burn all this fossil fuels and stuff, like sitting in traffic for 2 hours each way, just to do a thing that you could do totally competently at home?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Or, at least hybridize it,
Yeah.
Like, come in the office 2 days a week. You pick,
Mhm.
It's not like we have to stick to the way things have always been.
Yeah.
It's always been 9 to 5. Like, it's always been butts in seats. We can't change that.
But that's kind of the same logic. That'd be like, well, we've always rode horses.
Right.
And driven buggies and stuff. So why don't we keep doing that? Even though we have cars and fucking, flying spacecraft and stuff like that. Like, we have all this stuff, but we got to do it that way because, well, that's the way we've always done it. I don't get it. Like, it makes no sense. Ugh.
I mean, yeah, like, working from home, spreading out schedules, just generally, like, relaxing your sphincter as a CEO would do so much good for traffic
And for
and the environment.
Yeah, the environment and your employees.
Mental health.
Mental health, yeah, exactly. Like, how many people, well, geez, how many people have died due to preventable things just because of DST changes? Like, oh my God, I got to get up and I got to get to work and stuff, and people have heart attacks and strokes and stuff just trying to get to work. It's
Traffic
like,
accidents.
Yeah, like, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. What the hell? Like, okay, maybe if you're, like, working for, like, I don't know, the police or the fire department or something, like, you gotta be there. Like, okay, I get that. But, most people's jobs aren't life critical. It doesn't, like, if you didn't show up to work it wouldn't matter. The world would still turn. Like, it's totally okay. Just say fuck it. Stoicism. It's just, that's the thing. Like, just say fuck it. Like, cause, what does it matter? Is your life worth this stupid ass job that making widgets or something? Like, no, it's not. I mean, maybe it is. But I venture to guess it's probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there are some industries that are pretty laid back and all that, but like in biology labs, quite often it's fairly lax. Most people do tend to have that like innate sense that they need to be at work between 8 and 5 or whatever, and they just kind of do that because it's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
But really, like, I think what it's going to take is employers, like, actively urging people, like, please pick other shifts. Whatever works best for your life. Like, you don't want daycare, you want to, overlap, your work day with your partner's work day so you can stay home with the kids and blah, blah, blah. Do it. We need more people, more businesses, I should say, promoting that kind of an opportunity for people to choose.
And actually, as an employer, if you're a corporate entity or a business, it makes sense. Like, the most important thing is productivity. And if your employees are unhappy and unproductive, well, that doesn't do you a lot of good, does it?
Yeah.
So why not just like you said, relax your sphincter, just relax a bit, let it go. It's okay. Like, be a real manager, and like,
this would boost the economy so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about all these shops where they're like, oh, well, we close at 6 because, we feel like we have to be open from 9 to 5, but everybody's working from 9 to 5. So people only come in from 5 to 6, but, we've already been open for all these hours paying somebody to sit on their ass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you spread it out. Now you can expand your hours, hire more people. You've got a constant flow of business coming in, even into the middle of the night. Like, 24-hour everything.
Yeah.
Could be a thing.
And that's sort of a thing, too, is like, human beings don't operate on the same time schedule.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm a night owl, so I tend to stay up late and get up late. And I can work late. That's my sweet spot. Some people are like the early morning DJs that, like, sun rises and they're like, hey, ready to go! Like, okay, fine. You do that.
Garden daylight.
Yeah, you do that. I will do my late night stuff, and like, we can work together. But this goes. All of this connects.
You'd reduce crime too.
Yeah,
because people think the darkness, the night, is what fosters crime. It's actually the lack of people looking.
Yeah.
If you've got people milling about, you're not going to have as many
24/7.
opportunities. Yeah. People are afraid of the dark for no reason. They're really afraid of being alone.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I challenge anyone to, walk down the street in broad daylight somewhere where, there's nobody else, and then somebody suspicious looking comes your way, and you'll feel the same amount of fear that you would if it were dark. Has absolutely nothing to do with visibility. As far as light levels, I mean. But it has everything to do with the potential for being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Because criminals don't want to get caught. Right?
Well, yeah, and if you restrict everything to a certain time block,
Yeah.
well, then, yeah, there's the time where everybody's working and the time where nobody's working.
Like, all this rise in crime, everyone's trying to blame on this and that. When the pandemic happened, for no reason whatsoever, we had these curfews implemented.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, everybody had to be in their homes. All these businesses had to close several hours earlier than they would have.
As if, like, time had, like,
Oh,
the
COVID
virus
is more virulent at
Yeah.
11 p.m. than it.
yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's better to spread things out.
Yeah.
So there's less people in the same place at the same
So
time.
many businesses would not have had to close if they had expanded their hours instead
Mhm.
of being restricted to a curfew.
But everybody's fixated on this, like,
Yeah.
9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
That time block, I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that goes back to the road design, like freeways, highways, stuff like that. They're all built around supporting this completely artificial and nonsensical construct that like, oh, everybody's going to work at this time. Well, why? Like you said, what's the point of opening a shop at like 8 in the morning if most of your customers are working during that time? Like, why not run your shop late? Why are banks only open during the times when most people are expected to go to work?
Yeah.
Like, banking is a thing that can happen anytime. Why does it have to happen between these particular set hours?
I think banks really only exist for like old people that are stuck in their ways and they want to go and get some cash in hand and talk to somebody about
to a teller.
The new manure they put on their lawn last night. And they can do that because there's nobody else. They're all at work. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
like bankers and like most of these jobs that don't need to be jobs at certain times are probably just people sitting on their ass and like completely like fucking over the economy, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it should be open to, like,
if you're going to be working, be working. You know, like, be productive. If you're not being productive, you might as well not be working.
That's a good point.
Go do what you want to do.
Yeah, and work when you're most productive. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is like, as an employer, I would rather hire somebody who's productive. I don't care. Like, okay, sure, if it's like a retail thing, okay, there's certain limitations there. But if it's like biology or some kind of manufacturing or something like that, can happen anytime. So allow people to work when they're the most productive, when they want to work. If you want to work between the hours of, 1800 and 0400 or something like that, like whatever time slot you want, that should be fine. Because at the end of the day, as an employer, as a manufacturer or whatever, like, you want productivity. So why do we pack everything into this like completely artificially constructed time slot?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you gotta start at this time. Everybody starts at 0:30 at 0800. You clock out at 04 or 1600 or something like that. Like, why?
Yeah, even
Like,
working at home, like, productivity doesn't have to happen in a fixed window either.
Yeah.
Like the
It
time,
can't.
Yeah, The times I've worked at home, it's like, I'll work for a while, something, like frustrating will happen, and I'll be like, I need to take a nap. And I go take a nap, and then I just work a little longer. Or I can't sleep, and I just fire up the laptop and do some work until I get tired, and then I go back to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I'd probably just be like tossing and turning, being like, oh my god, I have to fit so much work into my 9 to 5 tomorrow because I'm not getting any sleep. Yeah.
And also, one of the things you run into, too, as an employer is like, people check out at their clock out time. Whereas if you kind of leave it open, which this has been shown, like definitively during the COVID times and the work from home times, that people tend to just work. Like, they will do things regardless of the time. Time is irrelevant at that point. Like, oh, well, I'll just do what I gotta do because, people want a sense of purpose. And jobs are a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
So, even if it's stupid, people will work long hours, long into the night to solve a problem that they've discovered or something like that. But if you turn it into like a time clock punch, then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, it's a start time, it's a stop time. And no one cares about the actual work. Whereas if you just let go of all that, we're like, well, you just come in whenever the hell you want and just do some work.
Yeah.
You actually, shockingly, get more productivity out of people because people want to do stuff. They like,
Well, ideas don't punch clocks.
No.
Like, you'll be in the shower and figure something out, but you're not on the clock, so you're like, I can't write it down. I'll remember it.
Yep.
And then you promptly forget, and you go into work, and you spend the next 8 hours being like, what was that idea?
Yeah, exactly. But imagine if you could just work, like, oh, I've got an idea at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just figure this thing out. And then, nobody's expecting me to come into work. I've solved the thing that no one else can solve. So, life is good. Like, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, like, at my last job, a lot of the stuff that I came up with that improved overall productivity and all that stuff was in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
From home.
Yeah.
With my laptop, where I was like, I would pull all-nighters and stuff. And I would actually try to go punch the clock the next day because they were, for some reason, really big on that, even though there was no reason.
Yeah.
And then, by 11 o'clock, they can see I'm like, and they're like, go home. And it's like, why did I even bother coming in? Like,
exactly.
Just pulled like a double shift all-nighter. Couldn't I just call in and be like, hey, I fixed this, but you know what? I need to sleep. So,
yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, one of the big problems with employment is the whole butts and seats thing. Like, this idea that, oh, well, productivity revolves around being at work. No, it doesn't. In fact, the opposite is true. That it has nothing to do with you being at work. Like, in fact, you being at work might actually be detrimental to the company and to the larger goals. And
it's because it's not about goals, it's about
control.
Volume of hours.
Well, and that comes down to control, too.
Like, if it was goal-oriented, like, each week, this is what we ask you to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, honestly, like it would be so much of an incentive if every week was structured based around goals and bonuses if you do extra.
Yeah.
You know, like here's what we need out of you. If you feel like doing more, well, we'll give you more. You know, like
that would be awesome. Yeah,
that
that's
would be
a
great.
really good idea.
This is the bare minimum we need. If you do more, well, we're probably going to make more money, so we'll give you some more money. You know, like
yeah,
why not
and
do
there's
that?
also kind of like a sense of accomplishment too. That is a drive for people that like, hey, you know, I did a thing that no one else could do. I am kind of annoyed that somehow at my company everybody thinks I'm the person that like knows everything about everything, and I literally know nothing. But you know, it's kind of fun to be part of that.
It's funny how we go from traffic to working.
Yeah,
I mean, those are,
I think they're connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that is actually like, I think one of the biggest ignored like symptoms. Well, not even symptom, a cause actually of bad traffic. Traffic being the symptom is work schedule.
Yeah.
You know, like this strict adherence to everybody being working at the same time, and somehow expecting an economy and a commerce infrastructure to survive that, which amazingly it somehow scrapes by. You know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, I would love to go patronize some shops. You know, like when I lived in Snohomish, yeah, cute little town, all these little shops, and I always wanted to go check them out. But by the time I got done sitting in traffic, 6 o'clock rolls around, they had all shut down.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't go. Ever.
Yeah, exactly. And like, what are they catering to?
Retired people.
I guess.
Yeah.
But there could be so
people
much
who have
more.
fixed incomes. You know?
Yeah. There could be so much more if people let go. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, flexibility is crucial for employment. Like, because really, like, the world still turns. People have needs. People ignore going to the doctor, to the dentist. They ignore getting their car fixed. You know, they ignore, like, paying bills because they can't make it to the, you know, like, the utility department or something, you know, like, which for some reason, like, always makes it hard to pay.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And also has the same schedule.
Right.
Too. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, as usual, we've solved all the problems, but nobody's watching, so it just sits there.
It will. Like, eventually, what we've put out will be picked up by future generations.
Are you picking up what we're putting down?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I mean, like, think about it. We've solved traffic infrastructure and, you know, work schedules and overall stress, which leads to better health, better mental health.
The environment, too.
Fewer deaths from traffic accidents.
Yeah.
The environment. Cost of maintenance of roads. I mean, like, you spread things out, you have less strain. Less focused strain on any given anything.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, a lot of these things...
Like,
the
cars
reason...
are heavy. If you have 1,000 cars right here at the same time, just sitting there, creeping along, that's way worse on the road than, like, 1,000 cars spread out over 24 hours. You know, just cruising along.
That's a good
with
point.
With a little bit of like air drift, like lifting them off the road, making them ever so much lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Because physics is a real thing,
It is. Yeah. It gets weird when you get into quantum physics, but we'll avoid that. Don't want to talk about the double slit quantum eraser experiment. But
did we just get demonetized?
Maybe. But yeah, like this is.
We need to find an island, pretty sizable island,
Mm-hmm.
and buy it and build our own nation.
Let's do that.
With like all of this logic based,
like science-based government.
Yeah. And I mean, like, this is the kind of thing that would actually require some amount of regulation, because people are like rivers, like they are programmed. We are all programmed to feel like, oh, it's 9 o'clock, I should be at work.
Mm-hmm.
You need regulations to say, no, you don't have to.
Well, I would argue the antithesis of that, but that's okay. Like, this is where the science comes in.
Yeah.
Like, experimenting with different ideas. I think that's important.
Yeah, but
that is not a thing. We've been doing the same shit for half a century, if not more. And expecting, being like, what? Like, things don't work the way that we think they do? Like, well, of course they don't.
I mean, I would say, like, unless a business can provide data that proves the most productivity happens in 5 8-hour blocks stacked together, then they shouldn't really be allowed to require that of.
Well, and I don't even know why you would, subjugate things in that regard. Like, why not just be like, hey, whenever you come into work, if you work a job that doesn't require any particular time frame, just come in whenever, do your piece, and then sod off.
Yeah.
Like, that should be good enough. It should be good enough.
People want to create buckets for everything.
Yeah.
They want to be able to, quantify everything.
And I get that, as a manager.
Yeah.
But
there's things that you just can't, though.
True. Yeah.
It's so fluid. You might be able to do something in 4 hours that would take me 8. And then something completely different, it's vice versa.
Uh-huh.
And that's going to differ between everybody.
Exactly.
You can't say, this task should only take you 32 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 days to get it done. 4 8-hour pockets of time where you need to be at your peak creativity, undivided attention, total focus.
Well, and you can't even,
on our timetable.
You can't qualify creativity.
No.
It's not a thing that, you imagine if you're a web developer or a designer or something like that, creative kind of thing.
Everything's creative.
Well, true, but you can't say, well, this should only take this amount of time. But it's okay, well, if you think this should take that amount of time, go ahead and do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, certain things, okay, yeah, like, say you know how to manufacture a gun by hand, and putting the pieces together takes you X amount of time. Granted, somebody might be faster than you,
True.
somebody might be slower than you, but, like, you might be able to say, hey, I can do this in this amount of time. And if you're able to say that, great. Tell your employer, then they can expect that of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, if you don't know how long it takes you, say, I don't know. And they'll be like, all right, well, get it done. And, you know, like, we'll compile some data.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll reconvene and be like, okay, you know, on average it takes you like 5 hours. You know, we'll expect you to do about 5 hours.
Yeah.
Why not make it that simple?
That's good. That's a good point. Oh.
Really, like, there's so much rigid, I don't know, bureaucracy that goes into this whole concept of work and money and, like, shit that we really don't even need. Like,
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, money is a medium of exchange. It's a way of, like, storing work for future, like, a way of trading with people in ways you don't have to necessarily, like, have sheep or cows or cheese to exchange. I get it, but it also it's artificial. Like,
yeah, I mean, do you think
none of this actually is real?
Do you think we wouldn't have evolved to what we are now without some form of currency? I find that hard to believe. Like, I feel like that's a river thing. Like, we've been trained to think we need currency and some tit for tat. But, I mean, do we really? Like, we do favors for friends all the time. Like,
yeah, like
there's so much imbalance in effort, and, you know, you could argue that it balances somewhere else. Like, you know, the pay it forward mentality.
True.
Things like that. Like, you don't. I mean, that's actually a more sound principle, honestly. The idea of pay it forward. It's like, okay, you could pay the coffee shop, or you could pay them a little extra and have the next person's coffee covered.
Oh, man.
Or you could walk in and be like, you know what, I'll go for the 12 ounce, and they'll be like, well, actually, the last person paid something, and you can get the 20 ounce. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, like, that makes more sense.
That does. Okay, I gotta pee really quick.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Commercial break. Well, beer 3. Haha.
Nice.
Woo!
Wow. Go get it, Floyd. Get it. That thing shoots those bottle caps, like, really far.
What were we talking about? Money? Money?
Yeah, I think so. Although I think we should probably wrap things up, because I think it's been kind of a long
It has.
episode.
That's a lot of, like, problem solving. Like, everything wrong with everything. And we just fixed it all.
Yep. We kind of did.
Kind of based on just traffic.
Yeah, that's
Like-
where it started.
Like, how much of the world's woes are just traffic problems?
Well, yeah.
We need a cybernautics department.
Cybernautics. That's traffic control. Jake Bullet.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the core of a lot. There's mental health, overall health, environmental health, economic health. So many problems revolve around traffic.
Yeah.
So many.
That's
And
really good.
hand in hand with that, all these work expectations. You know, like the tight sphincter of the work culture
Mm-hmm.
also has a huge effect on mental health and economics. You know, like because everybody being at work at the exact same time hurts the economy.
Yeah, it does.
Or at least let's say like doesn't allow it to thrive like it should. You know,
Yeah.
like supply and demand doesn't punch a clock, right?
No. No.
You know, if anything, like we're creating an imbalance in supply and demand artificially by making up these time windows where there's only this amount of time where your supply can be, you know, met with demand.
Yeah.
How does that make any sense?
That's
If you need a tampon in the middle of the night and the
Mhm.
stores are all closed, you still need a tampon.
yeah. Oh man. Well, okay.
That's how to solve all the problems in the world.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, share, and subscribe. Tell your buddies. Tell your friends. Tell your fucking boss to shove it. Kitchen sink my crossfeet says
Swivel
so.
on it, punk.
Tell your boss, I'm going to work from 8 to 9, 10:30 to 10:45. Have a quick snooze to have enough energy for the main snooze.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Take
man.
a long lunch. And then do like 80% of my work between 3 and 4, like a boss.
Mm-hmm.
And then go masturbate. And then, you know,
Yep.
yeah.
Like, why not?
And then, you know, like 5:10, you go clock back in and just, you know, check emails. And then, you know, like order a pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, like however you want to structure your day.
That should be okay.
That's it. You know, like
Yeah.
whatever feels right today,
Mm-hmm.
that's your productivity.
Huh.
Not every day is going to produce the exact same amount of, you know, widgets.
Yeah, the same amount of output.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of mentality will fix traffic. And in so doing, like, you fix so many other problems.
Well, let's see what the viewers think about
We've
that.
done it. We've fixed everything.
Yeah. Problem solved.